You give too much. You serve others while your own fire burns out. You obey, please, and sacrifice. Yet the world walks over you. This video will expose why putting yourself first isn't selfish. It's survival. Machiavelli will reveal how power begins only when you stop worshiping others and start mastering yourself. In a world where men burn themselves out trying to please others, where loyalty is given freely and power is surrendered daily, few remember the ancient rule of survival, the one Machiavelli etched in blood and reason. Power does not belong to the kind, nor to the loyal. It belongs to the man who preserves himself above all else. This is the first and greatest of Machiavelli's 10 secret power laws. The law of self-preservation. Power begins when you stop bleeding for others. Let us begin. Mankind is foolish by nature. He believes that by serving others, by giving away his strength, he earns love, loyalty, or security. Yet he earns only chains. Observe the servant who works tirelessly for his master, or the friend who sacrifices endlessly for those who take him for granted. Both end as slaves to the very people they sought to please. In every court, in every empire, in every modern world, the same pattern repeats. Those who give without measure become tools. Those who preserve themselves become kings. When I, Machiavelli, studied princes and men of power, I saw this truth clearly. The first law of dominion begins not with the conquest of others, but with the defense of oneself. The man who does not protect his own energy, his own mind, and his own ambition is like a fortress with open gates. Every beggar, parasite, and deceiver will march in and plant their flag upon his ruins. Understand this. Selflessness may earn admiration, but it drains power. It pleases the masses but leaves the master empty. To serve everyone is to rule no one, least of all yourself. The world is not a temple of saints. It is a theater of interests. Every person you meet, no matter how gentle their smile, seeks their own advantage. You must therefore become the protector of your own advantage before all else. The wise ruler understands that generosity must have purpose. To give without reason is to feed those who will one day devour you. Consider the lion. He does not share his meat to prove kindness. He feeds to survive, to grow stronger, to hunt again. If man wishes to command his fate, he must learn from the lion. Give only what strengthens your position. Withdraw what weakens it. To place others before yourself is to declare them your masters, whether you speak it or not. There is no virtue in self-sacrifice when it leads to ruin. There is only weakness disguised as nobility. The great mistake of good men is believing that others will repay goodness with gratitude. They will not. Gratitude dies quickly. Self-interest never sleeps. When you bleed for others, they will take your blood and ask for more. When you deny them, they will hate you, but they will respect you. And respect is the only true currency of power. Power begins when you stop apologizing for your hunger, when you stop explaining why you must protect your own time, your own peace, your own ambition. Those who accuse you of selfishness are merely angry that they can no longer exploit your selflessness. They call it arrogance when a man finally refuses to be used. They call it coldness when he chooses himself over them. But this is not cruelty, this is order. The world rewards those who serve themselves first, for they alone have something to offer. Think of the rulers who stood the test of history. Caesar, Borgia, and the princes of Florence. None of them wasted their energy pleasing the masses. They preserved their power through calculation, not compassion. They gave only when giving served their purpose. Even when they appeared generous, their hands were never empty. Their kindness was a weapon, not a wound. To put yourself first is not an act of greed. It is the foundation of strength. The man who collapses under the weight of others cannot carry his own destiny. You must learn to guard your resources as a general guards his army. Every favor, every hour, every piece of energy must serve your advancement. Before you help another, ask, does this strengthen me or weaken me? Does this make me a master of circumstance or a servant of sentiment? And when you find the answer, act without guilt. Nature itself does not apologize for self-preservation. The tree does not bend until it breaks to give every creature shade. The lion does not starve so the deer may live. Why then should man destroy himself to please those who would not do the same for him? You are born into a battlefield of desire. Every person you know fights for their survival, their comfort, their dreams, whether they admit or not. If you do not put yourself first, you will be placed last. Your compassion must be disciplined, your heart must be ruled by your intellect, and your energy must be rationed as gold. Only then will your presence carry weight. Only then will others serve your cause instead of draining it. When a man preserves himself, he becomes a force. His words have gravity. His silence has value. People sense that his energy cannot be cheaply taken. His attention cannot be easily bought. Such a man becomes mysterious, and mystery breeds respect. The more you give, the more they expect. The more you preserve, the more they revere. Learn to say no, and say it with calm authority. Learn to disappear when your energy is wasted. Learn to protect your ambition as one guards a sacred fire, because once that fire dies, no one will light it for you. They will only walk away, leaving you in the dark you created by neglecting yourself. So remember this, as Machiavelli once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both. But above all, it is better to be preserved than depleted." Power does not dwell in the hands of those who please, but in the hearts of those who endure. To put yourself first is not selfishness. It is the first act of sovereignty, and sovereignty, my friend, is the only true freedom a man can possess. In every kingdom, every family, and every relationship, there lies a truth that most will never see. Compassion is a double-edged sword. It can elevate a man to power or drag him into ruin. Most men mistake compassion for virtue, but Machiavelli knew it as a tool, a blade to be drawn with precision, never with emotion. The world teaches you to be kind, to forgive endlessly, to love without measure. But this is how rulers become beggars and masters become servants. When compassion flows without control, it becomes the weapon of the cunning. They will take your sympathy and mold it into chains around your neck. They will whisper gratitude, but behind their smiles, they will drink your strength. Controlled compassion, however, is the art of the wise. It is the ruler's mercy, calculated, deliberate, and never blind. A man who puts himself to understands that kindness, like gold, must be spent only where it multiplies his influence. He does not pour his energy into the ungrateful. He does not rescue those who drown by choice. He gives only to those whose rise strengthens his own foundation. Picture a prince seated upon his throne. The people approach with petitions, some sincere, some deceitful. If he shows mercy to all, he weakens his rule. His coffers empty, his soldiers grow restless, and his kingdom becomes soft. But if he aids only the loyal, rewards the useful, and punishes the parasites, his compassion becomes feared. It becomes power. That is controlled compassion. The world praises the merciful, but it obeys the calculating. Mercy without measure is the ruin of rulers. Machiavelli saw this in Florence and Rome. In every court where hearts guided hands instead of strategy, the man who cannot control his pity will one day kneel before those he tried to save. For in politics, in love, in all forms of human relation, mercy is respected only when it is rare. Controlled compassion does not mean cruelty. It means understanding that emotion is a servant, not a master. When a man feels pity, he must pause and ask, does this act of mercy make me stronger, or does it make me dependent on gratitude? If the answer is the latter, he must withhold. For gratitude fades, but the memory of your weakness endures. There are times when kindness must be worn like armor, shown outwardly yet never allowed to pierce the skin. You may speak gently, give modestly, and appear generous, but your motive must always be rooted in preservation. The wise man helps others not from sentiment, but from foresight. He builds alliances, not attachments. His compassion is an investment, not a donation. Observe those who love too freely. The man who forgives betrayal in the name of peace. The woman who gives her heart to those who do not deserve it. The friend who sacrifices his ambition to comfort the weak. They all share the same fate: exhaustion, disappointment, and loss of respect. Their compassion is admired, yet their influence dies quietly. They believe they are loved, but they are only used. To put yourself first, you must master detachment. The most powerful form of compassion is disciplined, quiet, and strategic. It does not announce itself. It serves a higher plan. If you help, it is because the act strengthens your position, sharpens your reputation, or builds your future. Never help because you crave approval. Approval is the drug of the powerless. In the game of power, kindness is a mask, not a mirror. You must wear it when necessary, to calm the fearful, to gain the trust of the gullible, to appear human while you calculate. But never let that mask become your face. Once they see you as endlessly merciful, they will test the limits of your forgiveness. Once they learn that your heart governs your will, they will use tears as weapons and emotions as chains. Controlled compassion demands discipline. The ability to look upon suffering without drowning in it. It is not indifference. It is sovereignty over your own emotions. The ruler must see everything, feel everything, but choose carefully what deserves his response. He gives not out of impulse, but out of purpose. He saves not because it feels good, but because it secures order. There is a difference between the fool who helps everyone and the wise who helps strategically. The fool believes his goodness will protect him. The wise man knows that only his strength can. Compassion without control is like a river without banks. It floods and destroys everything it touches. But controlled compassion is a river that powers mills, nourishes fields, and builds empires. It serves purpose, not passion. Learn to let others face the consequences of their own actions. It is not your duty to shield every soul from pain. Suffering is a teacher, and by protecting others from it, you rob them of growth while draining your own vitality. The wise man understands this balance. He steps in only when his intervention multiplies his strength or deepens his influence. Those who accuse you of coldness will never understand that restraint is the highest form of wisdom. To give freely is easy, to give with judgment requires power. The crowd may call you heartless, but secretly they will envy your control. They will see in you something rare, the ability to care without collapsing. Machiavelli once observed that men are driven more by fear than by love, yet a ruler who masters compassion creates both. Fear of his wrath, love of his mercy. But he gives mercy like a rare coin, sparingly so that it retains its value. His generosity has weight because it is not common. His kindness inspires loyalty because it is deliberate, not impulsive. So when you give, give with intent. When you forgive, do so because it strengthens your rule, not because it soothes your guilt. When you show compassion, let it be precise, measured, and silent. Never allow your kindness to become your weakness, for the world will disguise manipulation as need and drain you while praising your virtue. The man who learns controlled compassion becomes untouchable. He gives without losing, loves without submitting, and helps without being consumed. He is respected by all, needed by many, but owned by none. His heart is not made of stone. It is made of steel, shaped by wisdom and guided by purpose. He does not suppress emotion, he commands it. That is how rulers are born, and how the weak fade into servants of their own kindness. There comes a time in every man's rise when he must step away from the noise of the crowd. A time when he must vanish. Not in weakness, but in strategy. The world will tell you to stay connected, to always be present, to constantly engage. But Machiavelli knew the truth that few dare speak. Power is born not in constant exposure, but in deliberate isolation. The man who always stands among others becomes one of them. The man who withdraws to observe, to plan, to think, becomes their master. Isolation is not escape. It is refinement. It is the silent forge where ambition sharpens itself. When you pull away from the crowd, you do not lose influence. You create it. For every moment you spend in solitude, you collect the one resource others waste freely, clarity. Those who fear silence drown in distraction. They chase validation, noise, and companionship because they are afraid to face their own thoughts. But the powerful man, the one who rules his world, knows that solitude is the throne of self-command. When I, Machiavelli, walked among princes, I observed that the most dangerous men were those who could disappear and return transformed. The weak reveal every thought, every emotion, every strategy. They need to be seen to feel significant. But the cunning ruler keeps his silence sacred. He hides his movements behind a veil of calm. His retreat confuses his enemies and intrigues his allies. He appears withdrawn, yet his mind is never idle. He calculates in darkness what others expose in daylight. The world mistakes presence for power, but presence without purpose is merely noise. The powerful man withdraws not because he is tired of others, but because he understands that too much exposure makes him predictable. When people can read your every word, your every thought, your every pattern, they can control you. But when you pull away, when you become the storm they can sense but never see, they begin to fear you. Mystery is the silent language of dominion. Think of the lion again. He does not roar constantly to prove strength. He disappears into the shadows, unseen but always felt. His silence dominates the jungle more than noise ever could. The same truth governs human power. The moment they stop knowing what you think, what you plan, where you stand, they begin to respect you. Strategic isolation builds that aura of uncertainty, and uncertainty commands obedience. But beware, isolation without purpose becomes decay. Many withdraw from the world because they are afraid. They hide not to strengthen themselves, but to escape the discomfort of conflict. That is not isolation, that is retreat. The difference lies in intention. To isolate strategically means to step away so you may return stronger. To escape is to flee because the world defeated you. You must learn to vanish like a general moving troops under moonlight. Unseen but always advancing, isolation gives birth to self-mastery. In solitude, the mind clears the fog of influence. You begin to hear your own voice, not the echo of others' desires. The crowd thinks collectively, moves collectively, and fails collectively. The ruler must not think as the crowd does. When you are alone, you can strip away illusions. You can see your fears for what they are. Illusions of weakness designed by those who profit from your confusion. Do not mistake loneliness for isolation. Loneliness is hunger for attention. Isolation is hunger for control. They look the same to the untrained eye, but they are opposites in essence. Loneliness drains you, isolation feeds you. One makes you beg for company, the other makes others beg for your presence. The man who can sit alone with his thoughts, without needing distraction, possesses a power most will never taste. Inner dominion. When you isolate, you reclaim energy. Every interaction takes something from you. Time, focus, attention. These are currencies of the mind. The fool spends them all to be liked, to be seen, to feel relevant. The wise man guards them like gold. He invests them only where returns are certain. Strategic isolation is not silence forever. It is silence until necessary. You do not vanish to disappear. You vanish to prepare. Every ruler in history mastered this law. The Medici, the Borgias, the Caesars. They all withdrew when needed. They did not waste their presence in common places. They made themselves scarce, and that scarcity made their presence divine. When they appeared, the world stopped. The crowd listens more deeply to the man who seldom speaks, for his silence builds weight in every word. In today's world, men make themselves cheap through constant exposure. They display every thought, every struggle, every move. Their digital presence becomes their prison. They seek validation from those who have no power to grant it. But the man of strategy understands. What is constantly visible loses value. Your absence must speak louder than another's presence. Withdraw and let them wonder. Disappear and let them whisper. The curiosity you create is worth more than all the attention you could ever demand. Isolation is not about cutting ties. It's about controlling access. You decide who enters your circle, who deserves your time, who earns your wisdom. Most men open their gates to everyone, allowing parasites, flatterers, and fools to consume their focus. You must be ruthless with your energy. Your presence must become a privilege, not a product. Let few approach you, and let even fewer know your thoughts. The less they know, the more they imagine. And what they imagine often works in your favor. When you withdraw strategically, you create contrast. Your silence makes your return powerful. The world grows loud with speculation, and that noise builds your legend. The man who is always seen is soon ignored. The man who vanishes is always remembered. To disappear is to create myth. And myth is stronger than truth, for it cannot be disproved. Strategic isolation also trains emotional control. Alone you learn to master impulse. You see how the crowd reacts from fear, from envy, from approval seeking. You learn to slow your own reactions, to study before responding, to strike when others sleep. That discipline turns solitude into sovereignty. When you withdraw, you gather. You gather knowledge, energy, in silence, all weapons sharper than any sword. You build the inner fortress that no betrayal, no loss, no chaos can breach. While others crumble because they depend on noise, you thrive because you depend on yourself. So when the time comes to step back, do not explain it. Simply disappear. Let them talk, let them speculate, let them question. While they waste their energy guessing, you are rebuilding your empire in the shadows. When you return, do so not to seek validation, but to command attention. For the world only respects those who can be alone and remain unbroken. Strategic isolation is not a pause. It is preparation. It is the art of stepping away to see the entire board. The crowd fights over one square while you plan the whole game. In silence, your enemies reveal themselves. In absence, your influence multiplies. The world belongs not to those who scream for attention, but to those who command it through stillness. There is a silent tragedy that destroys more men than war, more rulers than rebellion. It is the disease of misplaced loyalty. Men chain themselves to people, to promises, to illusions, believing that loyalty is virtue. They die defending those who would never bleed for them. They stay bound to causes that no longer serve them, friendships that drain them, loves that weaken them. And in the end, their loyalty becomes their executioner. Machiavelli knew this better than any man. He watched princes fall not by the sword of their enemies, but by their devotion to unworthy allies. He wrote not for the sentimental, but for the sovereign. For those who understand that loyalty, when blind, is suicide. The highest form of loyalty is not to another person, not to a ruler, not to an ideal. It is to oneself. The man who serves himself above all else never betrays, because he never abandons his own purpose. The world glorifies selflessness. It teaches you to serve others before yourself, to sacrifice your own will for the sake of harmony. But harmony is the invention of the powerful to keep the weak obedient. The one who rules does not serve anyone else's peace. He creates his own. To put yourself first, you must align every decision, every alliance, every emotion with your own self-interest. If it does not strengthen you, it must be discarded. Loyalty to self is not vanity. It is order. It means knowing that your life, your mind, and your goals are your kingdom, and nothing deserves to rule over them. When you betray yourself to please others, you forfeit the very thing that makes you powerful, your sovereignty. A man who bends for everyone soon cannot stand for himself. And those who once admired his loyalty will despise his weakness. I have seen men sacrifice their dreams for love, their ambition for approval, their purpose for comfort. They mistake servitude for honor. They believe that to be noble is to endure exploitation, but nobility without strength is foolishness in disguise. True honor lies not in being loyal to everyone, but in being loyal to your own destiny. Those who deserve your loyalty will align with your purpose. Those who do not must be left behind. Ruthless alignment does not mean cruelty. It means clarity. It means you no longer make choices that betray your own advancement. You no longer stay in places that suffocate your growth. You no longer fight for people who would abandon you the moment you fall. To put yourself first is to understand that your time and energy are sacred. That every betrayal of your goals is an act of self-destruction. The masses are enslaved not by chains of iron, but by chains of guilt. They fear being called selfish, ungrateful, or cold. They fear the judgment of those who benefit from their compliance. But the wise ruler, the one who seeks power, knows that guilt is the weapon of the manipulator. When they call you selfish, it means you have stopped serving their needs. When they call you disloyal, it means you have chosen yourself over their control. Do not let their words bend your will. The world will always scorn the man who refuses to be used. Ruthless alignment demands that you examine every relationship through the lens of purpose. Ask yourself, does this alliance strengthen my kingdom or drain it? Does this person fuel my growth or feed on it? Does this loyalty cost me more than it gives? If the answer reveals weakness, you must cut the tie, no matter how much sentiment bleeds from it. Mercy in this matter is poison. Sentimentality is the enemy of advancement. Even in love, this law applies. Affection must never outweigh ambition. Love is not a throne, it is a guest. When love begins to rule you, it will demand sacrifices that rob you of selfhood. The one who truly loves you will never ask you to betray your own destiny. But most will, and when they do, you must choose your path, not their comfort. For every moment you betray your calling, you dig your own grave. When you live aligned with yourself, the world shifts. People begin to respect what they once tried to manipulate. They see that your loyalty is earned, not given. You become immune to flattery, untouched by guilt. Your decisions become sharper, your presence heavier. You no longer live for approval, you live for progress. And in that shift, power begins to orbit you. Those who remain loyal to themselves radiate authority. They move with purpose because they answer to no one but their own standard. They do not chase, they attract. They do not explain, they act. Their words carry the weight of conviction, for they are born from the fire of self-sovereignty. The world cannot shake such a man, because his foundation is built upon himself. History remembers those who were loyal to their vision, not to the comfort of others. Caesar crossed the Rubicon for himself, not for the Senate. Alexander defied his father's legacy to carve his own empire. Every man who has ruled the world first ruled his own will. They understood that loyalty, when misdirected, is a leash. And that freedom begins only when one becomes ruthlessly aligned with their own cause. To live by this law is to live by design, not reaction. It is to make choices that serve your long-term power rather than temporary peace. It is to love without losing yourself, to serve without being enslaved, to give without being drained. It is the art of balance through self-devotion. And though the world may call it ruthless, it is in truth the purest form of integrity. The alignment of every thought and action with the empire of your own becoming. Power does not come to the man who waits for the world to recognize his worth. It comes to the one who dares to recognize it first. To put yourself first is not arrogance. It is discipline. It is the foundation upon which every kingdom, every legacy, every empire is built. The fool believes that by serving all, he will be loved. The wise man knows that by mastering himself, he will be remembered. The 10 secret laws of power are not commandments written for saints. They are weapons for those who wish to rise above mediocrity. To preserve yourself is to build an unbreakable fortress around your soul. To control your compassion is to turn mercy into strategy. To withdraw strategically is to see the game from above, and to align ruthlessly is to ensure that every step you take moves you closer to dominion. Look around you. The world praises sacrifice but rewards control. It admires kindness but follows strength. Those who serve endlessly are forgotten, but those who serve their purpose shape the future. The one who governs himself with the precision of a ruler commands not only others, but destiny itself. Machiavelli once wrote that fortune favors the bold. But what he meant was that fortune bows to the self-possessed. The man who places himself first, not in vanity but in vision, bends the will of others without force. His silence carries weight, his presence demands respect. His loyalty belongs to no one but his mission. So ask yourself, will you live pleasing others, or will you rise and command your own fate? The choice defines everything that follows. For in the end, the greatest act of power is not the conquest of others, but the conquest of oneself.